myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Thursday night, which means it's Gibbo and Supermac joining me to talk about Newcastle United and what has been happening over the last 7 days. And I guess the answer to that question, John, is not a lot, as Paul Daniels would say.
Absolutely correct. The same thing that's been happening all summer. Absolutely nothing. Sign nobody. Only club in the Premier League to have that momentous achievement of being able to fail in the transfer market right up to the start of the new season. Let's not depress ourselves too much, because we're going to say no takeover, no change in ownership, no change in manager, no change in players. But apart from that, we're ready, and West Ham are terrified to death.
Yeah, Malcolm, it's been a long hard summer already, Malcolm, hasn't it? I mean, it's been a long slog for Newcastle fans throughout the pandemic, etc. You know, we've kept each other going on this channel, but ultimately it's been a long, hard slog. And you know, the takeover been murmuring away in the background, which I've now declared officially dead, because that's my gut feeling. I just can't see it going ahead. I've just relegated myself to the fact that I feel that it's going to be Mike Ashley and Steve Bruce for as long as the eye can see at the moment. But the fact that there's actually no incomings at this stage, we've discussed it, Malcolm. We've said maybe they're leaving it until the start of August because they don't have to pay an extra month's wages or whatever. But look, this is unacceptable. You know, we're a week away, just over a week away from kicking off the season in anger. Any player coming in now isn't going to have time to bed in. He's going to have to bed in as the season starts. He's going to have to get used to Steve Bruce's wonderful way of management, which I'm sure will be a culture shock to anyone arriving at the club. And he's going to have to deal with all the apathy which is going on off the pitch, which has been clear for me to hear and see at all these pre-season friendlies. People shouting for the owner's head again, shouting for the manager's head before a ball's kicked. No transfers. It's not doing any of us any good, Malcolm.
No, it certainly isn't. When you look at the situation, what are the players like in the dressing room? They must be saying, what? There's no new faces. And every club, it needs at least one new face to come in and really brighten the place up. I'm not seeing it. The players in the dressing room aren't seeing it. That it's almost as if there is complete and utter disinterest from the owner. And if Newcastle are relegated, he will lose the best part of £150 million by the relegation. And that side, that is the Newcastle United current side, that side, I cannot see getting promotion out of the Championship. I don't think it's got the fight and the scrap in it, for one, and I don't think it's got the ability. And so, and I'm just getting the overwhelming impression that the owner ain't interested. Just ain't interested. Newcastle United has served its purpose, and maybe the value of Newcastle United, because it doesn't look as if the takeover is going to happen. And so rather than invest in new players, I think he'd rather just scrap the club. I just have a really, really bad, awful feeling about this coming season. I really do. And when you've got an owner who is completely disinterested, my word, what chance have you got? Because that filters into the manager's office. It filters down into the dressing room. People start to feel that, you know. And if Steve Bruce, you know, for all we know, you know, he might be on the phone all day, every day, trying to interest players to come to Newcastle. In all honesty, who's going to be interested in coming to Newcastle? If they want to better and further their career, it's not Newcastle United you need to go to, because Newcastle United, it's a dead end club at the moment, and I was just so hoping and praying that takeover was going to go through, and that it would suddenly give the club such an impetus, such a new life, but that isn't going to happen now. I'm afraid. I'm with you on that one, Steve. And I don't think that there is anything in the club right now to create a spark of any kind. And the fact that the takeover isn't happening, that there's no new players, I can just see the whole mood of the dressing room going deep into depression, and I am hugely worried.
John, any news on Willock? Rumours abound today that the £25 million deal's been struck, but I'm always very wary of rumours, and I guess what you're going to say to me is what you usually say. Until you see him on the pitch with a strip on, then you're not going to be able to believe it. But is there any strength in this? Have you heard the same?
Yeah, I have heard the same. But as I say, call it cynical, because we've waited 18 months for a takeover and hung on every word, and now all three of us are totally dispirited on that. We've hung on every name that's been bandied about this long, hot summer about who Newcastle are going to sign. And every time, and I said this on this programme last week, every time we supposedly step up interest in a player, the next thing we know, he's heading off to a different club completely. I have heard the thing repeatedly said to me that really Arteta has now made his personal decision on Willock. It is that he believes he's expendable to what he wants at Arsenal, and therefore he is willing to let him go. Now, he could go in two ways. He could either go as a direct sell, which to Newcastle would be anything between 22 million and 25 million, or he could go as a loan for this season if Newcastle guaranteed to buy him for that sort of money at the end of this season to give them a breathing space financially. The interesting thing is that Ashley has evidently significantly gone down his previous route, which he went down with Almiron and he went down with Joe Linton, which is he will not normally pay anything like these sort of transfer fees, particularly this season, as Malcolm has talked about, because he's trying to sell and he's disinterested in the club. However, he has supposedly been convinced that because of Willock's age, 21, he is the same as Almiron and Joe Linton, which is very young in the 20s, so worth the investment because we'll get our money back when we sell on. The only thing's wrong with that is you wouldn't get half of Joe Linton's fee of 40 million if you were selling them now. You wouldn't get anywhere near 20, and you wouldn't, harsh as this may sound, you wouldn't make money at the moment on Almiron because he wouldn't be seen as worth more than the 20 million we spent on him. So he is his man. Yeah. So the two examples that he was given, which is Joe Linton and Almiron, doesn't stand up. But he does see that Willock, and what has convinced him, while the other two have did it, is Willock's form at the end of last season, of course, with the 8 goals. He can see him being worth a lot more in time to come. The only trouble is with this deal, and the reason I stay cynical, is that Willock himself is now having second thoughts about whether severing all interest in Arsenal and coming to somewhere like Newcastle is a good move for him. Because it was all right coming on loan here and seeing if Newcastle are going to progress and build a bigger side and a bigger club, but actually saying, no, I'm walking away from Arsenal, where he is a boyhood fan of Arsenal, etc., and I'm going to sign for Newcastle United. Does that sound like a good move? And of course, the other thing muddying the waters is that other clubs are now alerted that Willock can actually be bought. And I'm also told on the grapevine, and this may also not work, that Arsenal have stuck him in to conversations they're having with Leicester because they want Maddison out of Leicester, and they're saying to Leicester, we would let you have Willock as part of that deal. So it is a muddied picture. It is a slight breakthrough from Newcastle United's point of view, but it's not anywhere near past the post.
Yeah, it's going to be a long, hard summer and a depressing one, I think, for Newcastle fans. Let's just hope that we see some action in the transfer market over the next few days, and certainly, before the season kicks off proper. At least it gives us an opportunity. Malcolm, I'm not sure whether you caught Callum Wilson's interview in the Evening Chronicle this week. But in layman's terms, I think he laid his manager, Steve Bruce, out to dry, more or less explaining what we all knew, and that is that Graham Jones is the man who made the difference at the back end of last season, and he's looking forward to working with him again this season.
I don't know about hanging Steve Bruce out to dry, because I think that all the lad has done is stated the obvious, because that's precisely what happened. It was there for one and all to see that Jones has come in and made a significant difference, and so he deserves all the praise going. And then he went and joined England, and he's made the difference there as well, with them reaching the final. And sadly losing on penalties, and so his track record has been absolutely terrific since he first joined Newcastle during last season, and yet he's got no control over what's not taking place through this closed season and now into pre-season training. He can work with the players that he's got. They're the same players as last year. There's nothing refreshing happening in any way, and so he's just got to do the same old as last season. And
I bet Steve Bruce is thrilled to bits about what his centre forward has said in public, mind. I mean, I think he will be a little bit chuffed about that. Funny enough, I don't think Wilson realised. I don't think Wilson realised when he said that it would have such an impact, because he sort of said. Oh yes, Joe. He actually said that tactically Steve Bruce is a bit of a dinosaur, but really Steve Bruce had said that himself. He'd said that himself long ago, if you remember, long before Jones come and maybe before Wilson come, when he said, I don't put a lot of store on tactics. It's all just about having good players. So he'd almost said it himself. But when your top centre forward, who is loved by the crowd because he's a proper centre forward who scores goals, turns round and gives credit to the man the fans are already giving credit to, which is Graham Jones, and suggests that tactically that is not Bruce's strength. He's got other strengths without telling us what they are, but it's not tactics, and this fella's more modern and more with it, etc., etc. I don't think that Callum, in telling perhaps the truth and telling it the way he saw it, realised the bag of worms he was going to open, nor realised what might be waiting for him the next day in the training ground when he walked in, and Steve, with smoke coming out both his ears, was waiting for him to say, "Tar very much, mate. You've done me the world of good there. I've just had a pay rise from Ashley and been voted flavour of the month by the Newcastle United fans."
We've got two birthdays in the chat, lads. Dave Harrison, our very own Robin Hood, and Chippers, both regular watchers of the show. Would you say happy birthday to them, guys?
Yes,
Absolutely.
indeed.
Happy birthday, fellas, and I hope that we aren't depressing you on your birthday by telling you what you can't look forward to in the new season.
Yeah, absolutely. John, couldn't agree more. And happy birthday, guys. Let's just hope that your year ahead is not an uphill one, that you can go excitingly skiing downhill. Although I just have a feeling that in the long run, Newcastle are going downhill.
Yeah, I agree, Malcolm. I agree. Okay, fans' protests. We've seen plenty of them over the years. John, you've reported on a lot of them over the years. I've took part in a lot of them over the years. It's topic of the social media again. People thinking about what to do, how to display their, anger, etc. And I've seen various suggestions. I don't see how any of this is ever going to work, John. But I mean, you can't fault people for trying. What's your view? I mean, we feel as if we're in purgatory. I don't feel like Groundhog Day now. I feel like purgatory, where we're queuing up in a queue. We get to the front and then we appear at the back of it again, and that's how being a Newcastle fan feels at the minute. But it doesn't mean that the anger dissipates. People are still angry and they want to try and demonstrate, but I think people don't even know who to demonstrate against now.
I think that's absolutely right, and it's an awful state of affairs, isn't it? Because when I look at Tyneside at the moment, and I'm not certain that Steve Bruce actually realises this. I don't think, as far as Ashley's concerned, he could care less, as Malcolm said earlier in the show. I don't think it bothers him one iota, but I'm not certain Steve Bruce actually sees it. But the problem that is with Newcastle United at the moment is that with the fans, there's only two things. There's anger and there's apathy. There's anger and fury at what's happening, and let us rebel and let us protest. And on the other side, there's apathy. We're not going to even bother going to the matches. We're not going to even bother taking part again until there's a new regime there. And that is a very powerful combination, anger and apathy, because it covers 9/10 of Newcastle United fans. And I mean, I've written a piece that goes in the Chronicle tomorrow morning, and it will go online tonight, talking about the last time there was something like this was 1985 with Jack Charlton in the last of that summer's pre-season games, when we played Sheffield United at home in front of 4,000 fans. And the fans demonstrated against Big Jack during the game, and he took to his toes and was out and said, "I'm off." In fact, he was out at St James's Park on the final whistle quicker than the fans who were getting down to the bus station to get the bus home. He was nearly in Ashington by the time they did that. And there's great similarities because him and Brucey, because when you think about it, they're both Geordies. They were both no-nonsense centre-halves. They both won the title with the Uniteds of Leeds in Manchester. They both went into managers' jobs as a consequence of that. Their limited style of play, which was not expansive but straitjacket, was hated by Newcastle United fans in both their cases. and the similarities are really astonishing. But the outcome will be very, very different, because Big Jack, who never worked on a contract in his life as a manager, do you realise that? In his whole life as a manager, in Middlesbrough, Sheffield Wednesday, and Newcastle in the Republic of Ireland, he never once signed a contract or asked for one. And so whenever he left the club, there was never a payoff. When he left Newcastle and walked out, they didn't have to pay him one penny. He never signed a contract at any club in his managerial life. And he won Manager of the Year at Middlesbrough. And with the Republic of Ireland, he became an absolute hero, 2 successive World Cups in finals in the 90s. But he walked out on Newcastle when the fans went against him. The similarity, like the final match of the final pre-season game before the season kicks off, and there was a week to go in 85, and there is now. The big difference is, whatever happens against Norwich on Saturday, Steve Bruce will not knee-jerk and walk. There is absolutely no question of that. He will not do a Jack Charlton in that way. He will stay on despite the frugal approach of Ashley, despite the anger of the fans, despite a rebellion against tactics, despite fans hating excuses that are given for poor results, etc., etc. Steve Bruce will stay on at Newcastle United. And with this confusing situation about how long is he going to be manager of Newcastle United, because exactly what is his contract situation? And by the way, my belief is that, and I strongly believe this, he's on a rolling 1-year contract, which we've all heard of. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you've still got 1 year left on your contract. The contract's rolling, so that whenever he left Newcastle, he would not leave Newcastle at the end of the coming season and they don't owe him a penny, because at the end of the coming season, he'll have a year left on his contract. He will always have a year left on his contract, so he would need paying up. It's the rolling on contracts that several managers have these days, which gives them a year left.
Bobby Robson had it, didn't he?
Sorry?
Robson had it.
Yes, that's exactly
Bobby Robson had it.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's exactly what it is, and it's the same case. So, so I've done this article tomorrow. There's great similarities between the Jack Charlton regime of 85 and the Steve Bruce regime of 2021, but it will certainly not end up the same way as Big Jack's did.
Yeah, unbelievable, really, that we're going into this season after all the hope that we had about takeovers and new managers and money to spend, that we're literally going into this season with Steve Bruce. It's no wonder the fans are unhappy, Mal.
No wonder. The Newcastle fans throughout the ownership of Mike Ashley, they have hoped, they have believed, they have supported, expecting something to happen, and nothing's ever really happened. You know, there's not been any real signings of the caliber that Newcastle have known in the past. No big personalities, no big names, which always go down well at St James Park. And so in all of this, I think I just get the feeling that now that this takeover has collapsed, and I can't see it happening from here, not now. I get the feeling, talking with people, and I'm out with my dog for 3 or 4 hours every day, and I get talking with people, all Newcastle United supporters, all so concerned about the current situation, and I get the impression that they are running out of hope. And that's dangerous. That really is dangerous because if you've got no hope, where do you?
I think we're losing Malcolm. His internet's getting a little bit worse, John.
I think he's run out of more than hope, Steve. I think he's run out of internet as well.
And a bit of battery. He's lost that little bit of impetus that he had early on. We did have issues beforehand. We'll bring Malcolm back in due course. It's a good chance to get a shout out for all of our sponsors as always. And I have to say, John, no surprise with the way that the season is going to develop. I think at the start, Darren Baldwin Funerals is on board. Independent funeral directors. Telephone 0191 478 2730. Email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk and his website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. We've also got another funeral director, Ellen G. 0191 389 7245. Big shout out to both of them who've come on board as sponsors. Gave them a shout out first just to get you to laugh, John. I knew you'd see the funny side. Also a big shout out to skipsandbins.com. There is Sir Bobby, of course, who has been on board with us for the last few months, and a big shout out to Scott. Does mean a lot, people supporting us. You can telephone them 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay as you go waste collection. And also a big shout out to Spider VPN, who've been with us for the last 4 months as well. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of your Google search list, and they will help protect your computer. They will help basically protect your passwords, everything on your computer. Great VPN service from Spider VPN. Please Google them. They have been on board with us, as I say, for the last 4 months. And a couple of guys who've been with us from the start, qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend and Newcastle. And, of course, the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. John is in the chat again. He's been hit badly with COVID, as you all know, but he is on the road to recovery, out of hospital now, back home, and allowed to mix with his family in 4 days' time. So get well soon, John. I know we've been in touch on a regular basis, but great to hear you're on the road to recovery. And big shout out as well to John at Jab Signature for making all of our flyers. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please subscribe. It's free. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's it. You subscribe to the channel. You'll get a notification when shows like this are going live. Hit the thumb up underneath the video. That just likes the video. It helps us. Boost our channel, as does sharing it. If you share this to your social media like Facebook and Twitter, spread the word. If you're a member on a Facebook group, a Newcastle United Facebook group, tell people you've enjoyed the show and share it to your various social media. Help us boost our numbers. And you can always drop into the chat, post a question, which we'll be taking a lot of in the second half of the show, and post a comment in there. There is like-minded Newcastle fans in there. We're also on all your podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. So if you missed the show, you can catch up with us on there or catch up on the repeats on YouTube. So it's event season now as well. So we've got tonight, if people live near the Punch Bowl, aka Bulbix now, I'm doing a talk in with Liam Kennedy. All proceeds going to the food bank. And then on the 19th, I'll be doing an event with Malcolm at the Farmhouse Kitchen. There are some tickets still available for that. So get yourself along to that. And on the channel, of course, I do like to do a few diverse interviews. And I've just done a cracking interview today with Peter McAleese, who is a former SAS officer who has a hell of a story. And that goes live on Saturday. He was the man who was given the job of trying to kill Pablo Escobar. Find out how that went on. It is a cracking story, tells us about his military career. And I also interviewed today, again, another pre-record, which will be out in a week's time, Jamie Hull. And Jamie, again, is another military man who has a great story to tell, has a book out, and you will be able to catch that on the channel at a later date. Now, I've got to give Nick a big shout out, who runs an aviation company in Newcastle, big follower of the show. Sent us a couple of photographs, lads. And first of all, this one, Malcolm, what was it? Were you getting ready for a charity boxing match?
I haven't got a clue.
I think you take Malcolm. I think you're taking off Bruce Forsyth there, aren't you?
I think so.
That's his pose,
I think so. I could have done with a haircut.
Yeah.
With a haircut, couldn't I?
Now, I did love these two. Firstly, this one, two legends together.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, dear old Jackie. What a lovely, lovely man.
Jackie Milburn, of course, and we couldn't let John escape either. John.
There we are.
You and
With
Jet.
the great man as well. In a teddy bear coat on St. James's Park with the great man, looking at where he and Malcolm scored a lot of the goals at the Gallagher end. But the hair's not quite as grey there. The coat's, I don't know how I managed to keep that coat up. Actually, it looks as if it's about 5 sheep on me back there. But believe you me, at the time, Steve, before you laugh, I was cooking with that on, pal. That was cooking on gas, that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Great. Always good to go back. There's a NUFC Pink, I think it's called. It's on Twitter, who is posting a lot of old photographs. Maybe worth you having a look on there. If you're on Twitter, some great photos, some great memories. I'm sure there'll be more of Malcolm and Gibbo as that account grows and grows. So look forward to that. And just to promote it as well, me and Mal are back at the Dog and Parrot pre-match. If anyone is going to the Norwich game on Saturday, Malcolm and I will be there 12:45 until 1:15. Me and Malcolm will be there just having a chat about the game ahead, the season ahead, and looking forward to meeting you guys. That's our regular haunt for home games during the season. So if you can get along to that, it is free of charge, and we will be upstairs in the Dog and Parrot this coming Saturday. The bar will be there from 12. Malcolm will be there from 12:45. So get yourself along if you want to meet up with us. There's a few people from NUFC Matters, having Spenny Mag, Holly and that are coming along. So it'll be good to see as many of you as possible. Okay, let's get into the questions in the chat. I know there's quite a few. First one from Malcolm, and that is from Raimundo. And he says, does Malcolm think the pitches of today cause hamstring injuries? He says, in your day, there was muddy pitches with plenty of give, and I don't remember you having a hamstring injury. Are the pitches to blame, or is it the fact that players are, I don't know, supposed to be supposedly more fitter these days?
Yes, absolutely. I can't see why today's pitches would give hamstring problems to players. I never had a hamstring problem, but then again, I had long hamstrings, which is the best. Any players who had slightly short hamstrings were always liable to pull their hamstring or get a strain or whatever. And the pitches of today, they are so incredible to be on, and what usually causes a hamstring is if you find yourself stretching or all of a sudden your foot slipping away and going and taking you into a slightly unusual position. That's when it happens, but of course none of that takes place on the pitches of today. The pitches of today are better on the last day of the season than they were on the first day of the season when I was playing. It must be absolutely fantastic to play on. There is just a little bit of give, so it's not punishing the hamstrings at all, but also you don't have that muddy situation where you're liable to slide away and your hamstring or your groin gets overstretched. So no, I can't see that at all. that do the players warm up sufficiently? You know, I must say, I watch players go out before a game, and they go out. We used to seriously warm up in the dressing room, and then we go out and sort of do a few little sprints, sort of about 5 to 3. You know, literally 5 minutes before the game was due to start. But they go out these days some 40 minutes beforehand. And I see what they're doing, and I'm not convinced that players are really stretching themselves out to the extent that that we used to, and you know, and it was a concerted effort in the dressing room that we used to do, seriously stretching everything out, and you know, it looks to me as if it's all just maybe a little bit too relaxed. I see them starting to do little sprints, shuttles and doggies, we used to call them, and maybe they haven't warmed up sufficiently to start doing that. So I don't think that it's the pitches at all. If anything, they need to do a really expansive stretch out of just about every part of their body.
Yeah, interesting. Lots of people agreeing with you as well, Malcolm. Yano says, following the recruitment of Graham Jones by the club, we saw some of the best football we've seen in years. It was certainly a massive improvement over the Rafa dross. Why so pessimistic, John? Look, there are two sides to the story. I certainly don't bring Rafa up a great deal now on this show. He's in the history books. We've confined him there. Mike Ashley confined him there when he let him go. There was this insistence on the current manager, Steve Bruce, to continue to bring him up. And it seems that certain journalists are still keen on bringing Rafa up at every opportunity. But it's pointless. But looking at the Yano comment there, would you say that Graham Jones's football was the best we've seen in years, John?
I think, in fairness, that's stretching it an awful long way. But you know, the bar ain't high. You've got to be a limbo dancer to get under the bar these days. You know, it's not as if we've got high standards. I know the point the guy is obviously making, because there was a significant improvement twice, if you remember, when Graham Jones come in. There was an impact immediately when he came in, and we went to Everton on the back of defeat after defeat after defeat, and played with a split striker situation, etc., and played ever so well and got a result. Then we got injury to Jones. We couldn't play the split strikers. We tried to continue with the system and hadn't the personnel, and it didn't work. Then we reinvented the wheel for the final run-in to the season, and that got us the results we need. The reason for being pessimistic is because, quite frankly, you can have the greatest coach in the world, but if he is working with very limited people of ability against clubs that have a lot of ability at their fingertips, then however much you organize it over a whole season, over a 9-month entry Grand National course, you're going to be found out. You've got to give Jones kept us up. There's no question that we stayed up because of what happened in January, which was Joe Willock signing and Graham Jones coming. And the combination of Willock's goals and Jones's nows got us through, and it looked comfortable and much more comfortable than it was in reality. And he is our greatest hope right now as we sit here with the players that we have. He is our greatest hope for this coming season. But we've already lost Dubravka before the season has started. And what is worrying as well for me is that in the pre-season games, when you want people, and Malcolm knows this more than anybody, to great fitness under the belt and be ready for the kickoff. San Maximum has not played 190 minutes yet. 190 minutes before we play Norwich, and that might change. And Callum Wilson has gone out with yet another injury. This is worrying because if Newcastle are expected to compete this coming season and be comfortable, and we hadn't Dubrovka and Wilson and San Maximum, and we also haven't got Willock as of this moment, then we have real problems. I mean, I just took very quickly, forget about the clubs at the top. Manchester City, £100 million for Jack Grealish, 150 million perhaps for Harry Kane. A different world. They might be in the same league. We might all be in the same house, i.e. the Premier League, but it's a different world for them than it is for us. But let us look very quickly at the teams around us, the sort of sides that are on a par or ought to be on a par with us. What have they done this summer? You've got Watford, who have signed 10 players. Norwich have signed 9 players. Leeds have signed 6. Wolves have signed 6. Crystal Palace have signed 6. West Ham have signed 4. Southampton have signed 4. Everton have signed 3. And that's with the window still open. We have not only signed non-guys, but we are worse off because we haven't got Willock in his goals. We've sold Andy Carroll without... we've released Andy Carroll without bringing in another striker. And we've let go the 2 guys that were missing on loan, Lejeune and Muto, without having the bodies to cover. So 4 have gone from the end of last season and none have come in. In the meantime, all these other sides, and you know what worries me? Aston Villa, they might have got 100 million for Grealish, but they're immediately reinvesting that. They've signed Leon Bailey, a winger, for 30 million. They've signed Danny Ings. We all know what he can do for 30 million. They'd already bought Emiliano Buenda from Norwich for 40 million. They've got Ashley Young. 2 seasons ago, the season before last, guys, they only stayed up with a result on the last day. They're now miles ahead of us, Aston Villa. They might have lost Grealish, but look what they're doing in bringing in. And there's another 2 or 3 players they will bring in because they're going big bucks. And a year ago, they went big bucks. And they got the reward, didn't they, in the season just ended. When I see Aston Villa moving on so quickly and Newcastle, who were in a better position than them a year ago, struggling, that's what infuriates me, and I believe that's what infuriates Newcastle United fans. And really, it's dispiriting, big time dispiriting for me.
It is. Lots of people commenting on your lighting tonight, John. I think you're in some kind of 1960s shebeen. It looks like you're in the Blue Lagoon tonight, John.
Well, maybe, just maybe, I've gone back to the nightclubs of my youth, and that's the strawberry lighting behind me. And it's really a nightclub situation the minute you release me. On the other hand, it may be that I'm just forgot to put the light on in the house, which I think I have done. But I'll leave you guys to decide which it is.
We'll ask. I hope Dodo Bird's watching because he'll have some kind of story about this kind of lighting in nightclubs. I'm sure if he catches up on the program, he will give us some kind of story. Geordie Sandcaster says, "Why do the club insist on not communicating with the fans? As a young lad in the Leazes End, I was there when Supermac scored that hat-trick against Liverpool, and I can still see it to this day." Lots of people talking about that great day at St James's Park as well, when Malcolm made his home debut. And it's, look, it is doom and gloom. And I think from our perspective, it's a case of just hoping for the best. Malcolm, looking at everybody's comments tonight, everyone is of the same feeling. We've just got to hope for the best. And listening to John give the statistics there of, the likes of Villa and other clubs doing business, it it just compounds Newcastle's misery even more, I guess.
Yeah, it's quite frightening, isn't it? And depressing also. But the reason why the club don't communicate with supporters is they've got nothing to say. They really haven't got anything to say. They haven't got an announcement to make. They haven't got the will to sort of try and gee the fans up, because they know the fans' reaction will be, why are you trying to gee us up? Get the squad sorted out. Get some fresh players in. Get new blood around the place. So the club, they know the mood of the fans, and they're staying very distant of the club, very distant indeed, because they can't win this. They really can't win it. And well, and it just makes me wonder whether there's a feeling inside of St James Park that this is going to be possibly a season that's rather disastrous.
May I ask you, Steve? May I ask you a question, Steve? As a fan who's gone to all the pre-season games away from home, etc., Newcastle United are now going to play a pre-season friendly at home to Norwich, and a week later open their programme against West Ham up here, with, for the first time, people on the terraces. What do you think is going to be the reaction of the fans within St James's at those two games?
I think there'll be a lot of animosity and a lot of anger. I've seen a little bit of that on the away travels in the pre-season friendlies. A lot of people singing against Ashley, a lot of people singing against Steve Bruce. I would say mocking Steve Bruce, for his connection with Sunderland. And more or less saying, what we are, that we're not a very good football team, and that he's a sad Sunderland fan. So look, it's not pleasant, and however many turn up for the friendly, we always know that, if we hit 25,000 for a pre-season friendly, that's usually good. I'd be surprised if there's 20,000 there for this Norwich game. I really will, especially when season ticket holders can see Norwich, in due course in the Premier League. I think it's a bizarre fixture. I understand because of COVID, but I think there'll be a lot of anger and animosity. It's going to be interesting to see how many people turn up for West Ham. We know that the season tickets haven't sold out. We know that before COVID, we were 10,000 season tickets down. I'm expecting it to be obviously less. And people will be able to pay match by match, which is something they haven't been able to do for a long time. So it's going to be interesting. And I think if the football that's served up is as bad as it was pre-Graham Jones, then we're in for a bit of trouble. And you've already mentioned it, John, earlier in the programme, the concern that we have over key players being injured. ASM seems to be on a play as you like contract. When he feels he's ready to pull on the black and white shirt and have a game, he turns up. If not, he's on a plane to France, or he's got some kind of illness relapse. Callum Wilson, although he's by far our best forward at the club at this moment in time, he's injury prone. He doesn't get through a full season without 1 or 2, months in the fitness room. And we're not bringing any players in. And people, will point to the fact that Joe Willock was the reason we stayed up. His goals and his performances in those last few games, and the return of Callum Wilson in the SM, and the return in a rich vein of form, that kept us up. At the moment, we have Callum Wilson, who has already been injured in pre-season. ASM, who's nobody's seen him, at all. And the club are only saying they can't say anything because it's a medical issue. And we have no Joe Willock yet. So, as well as those players that were released, the fringe players, despite them being players who probably would never have got a game anyway, we're left with very little. And it's, I think it's going to be poisonous. It's going to be venomous. I think personally Steve Bruce is at the club only because Ashley gave him a contract, because he probably thought the takeover was going to go through. Now he's got this situation where Steve Bruce is stuck at the club. Bruce probably didn't expect to be here this long. And it's just an absolute mess. It really, really is.
Fair, that's absolutely fair comment. I couldn't agree more. And the feeling you're talking about on the terraces, which you've seen in the pre-season, and which is likely to happen with Norwich and West Ham. Norwich, unless we're tucked up big time, might be a little bit more muted, but West Ham, with the danger they bring, will be frightening. And if we don't win both of those games, then reality might well come home to roost, because it is quite absurd. And the blame for Newcastle being in the position they are this summer regarding transfers lies totally at Mike Ashley's door, because he tells us what he can do and can't do. I have always been worried about when we are allowed to sign, we still sign badly. But that is the second worry. We've got to start signing before that becomes a worry. And my concern, guys, is that if we, at this late stage, go down only the loan route and do it to pacify fans, we're not going to get our first choice target, or our second choice, or our third choice. We're going to get the fifth and sixth choice. And when I look back on some of the people we've had on loan in recent times, like Slimani, like Danny Rose, like Bentaleb, etc., it is frightening. We don't just want bodies in. That is not good enough, because the bodies in have got to be quality, like Joe Willock was quality. And to be truthful, the greatest hope we've got sitting here tonight is the hope that we might still see the return of Joe Willock in some shape or form, if his heartstrings pull and he comes on loan without having to sever all connections with Arsenal. That still remains, I think, our biggest hope, in Bruce's biggest hope of pacifying fans. Because if for us to be a week from the start of the season without one solitary single signing is an absolute disgrace and dereliction of duty. And if we don't get 2, 3 people in, or if it's on loan, fine, if it's quality. But getting people in, we're not stupid, us Geordies. We don't want people in for the sake of it. Oh, here's 2 people on loan. Now we're okay. 3 matches in, when we've seen those people on loan, we'll say, why on earth did we get them at all? They're no good. It has got to be quality. And also, a point, as you mentioned, I think, Steve, signing now, right before the season starts, or during the first couple of weeks of the season, nobody can bed in. This business. Steve Bruce, God bless him, went to York, is the old Duke of York, going up the hill and down the hill, about 3 weeks ago, and told us that the best idea of having a camp in York is because new signings can bed in. Well, we ain't got any new signings and nobody's bedded in. So there we go. That's real hope for us all, isn't it?
Well, the good news is Messi's quit Barcelona. Get him signed, Bruce, says
Has
Kenny
he?
Ransom.
I know why he's quit Barcelona, because he's on his way here on a loan deal. Because he's heard that the Bruce man and Ashley's flown over his plane to Barcelona to put Messi in, bring him here, and Stevie Bruce will convince him that the only place where your career can actually take off, because he's just been messing about as Messi in Barcelona, but his career will really take off when he comes here. The same sort of patter that got us Michael Owen from Real Madrid, by the way.
Chippers reckons that ASM's illness is transferitis, Malcolm.
Quite possibly. It must be very depressing for players, particularly somebody who's got the ability of ASM. He's looking for something a lot grander. Joining Newcastle was just a stepping stone for him, and and I would think he's seriously pushing to get a move. I really do. And what incentive is there for a player to stay? You know, and let me just remind everybody that Arsenal, I think they finished last season 2 places ahead of Newcastle. Yeah. And they're prepared to let Willock go. And and here in the northeast, on Tyne side, we're pinning all our faith and hope on the fella that Arsenal are quite happy to get off the books.
May I say, guys, before we go any further, just because of fairness all round, regarding the Alan Maximum situation, because of a critical article I did, I have then found out some detail since, and in fairness, Sam Maximum has been ill, but did not want it released what his condition was, and therefore that has had to be respected. The club, in their stupidity, didn't come out and say that. They should have come out and said that, which kills stone dead any suggestion of it. But no, they don't communicate with fans. Did we say that? Did one of the guys along the bottom of the screen? They don't communicate with fans. You don't have to communicate by saying something. You've just got to explain why you can't. They never explained why they can't. It's a genuine situation. As much I'm saying this from St. Maximum's point of view as from Newcastle United's point of view. Having said that, I think the overall problem remains hugely. St. Maximum, both of you guys, as part of the interview where Callum Wilson revealed that his thoughts on Steve Bruce and Graham Jones on tactics, he also said that St. Maximum wants to be in the France squad for the World Cup that's coming out in Qatar. Well, if you're as ambitious as that, and he should be as ambitious as that, then playing at Newcastle United, if they sign absolutely nobody, which they've done so far, is not the way to do it. So he is going to be chuntering at the bit. He is as exasperated as us that Newcastle United have not signed anybody so far this summer. But I'm also told, incidentally, and it makes total sense, that there are several other senior players as dischuffed about Newcastle, i.e. Mike Ashley, not signing anybody. But
not surprised.
There is a massive problem with St. Maximum because it's called ambition. And so he should have ambition.
Yeah.
Wilson himself's got ambition. Wilson wants to get back in the England squad. Now, he should have that ambition. St. Maximum should want to play for France. Are they going to do it here? Yes, with 50,000 in it. If we go out and do the sort of thing Aston Villa's been doing, there's a possibility. But not what we are doing now. So not only has Steve Bruce and Ashley got a problem about not having new players, but they've got a problem in-house with the players they've already got that can play getting sick of the fact that they've got no help coming this season. So the problem goes way beyond just needing to sign other players. The few quality lads we've got in the dressing room are well dischuffed at currently what's going on.
John, you followed Newcastle United in excess of 6 decades.
Yeah.
Have you ever known a close season and pre-season of such inaction at Newcastle United previously?
That's a great question. If we go back early in the Ashley years, I think 14, 15 or whatever, there was a summer where we didn't sign anybody at all. But I don't think that the club then was in as big a mess as it is now. I have never in a long, long time since we had somebody like McGarry in charge, known Newcastle United fans so depressed as they are now. And so wherever they turn, because one of the reasons, Marlon, we all know this, is because the carrot was hung out there, wasn't it? There was the possibility of the takeover. There's a possibility that we could be a Manchester City, for goodness sake. And instead of that, we could be a Portsmouth or a Sunderland or a Coventry City. And that is depressing. I mean, I've seen more light shining at the bottom of a coal mine at midnight than there is at Newcastle United at the moment.
Yeah, great stuff, lads. As always, the clock has beaten us. I'll finish with these two. We've got to have a bit of humour from our listeners. And one person said that, where is it? I've got to find it. Billy Train's son, Ashley turned down Messi. He says there's no sell-on value. He's too old. And Nicholas from the Felon says Bruce would simply put Messi in goal. So
it's nice to finish with a laugh, and the fact that both are true, it doesn't matter. It's a good laugh, baby.
It is, lads. Great to have you on as always, lads. Look forward to seeing you next week when we'll be looking ahead to the first game of the season. Have a good week, lads. Take care, Malcolm. And Malcolm, guys, I'll see you Saturday at the Dog and Parrot, Malcolm.
And yes, look forward to it. 12:45. Okay, well. Enjoy the weekend, folks.
Take care.
Take care, guys. Lovely to talk to you.